Welcome to the With Pride and Grit podcast, a show dedicated to helping you navigate a season of transition in your life. I'm your host, Jen Pasquale, and as a 16-year military spouse, I know firsthand how challenging life's transitions can be. I also know it's an opportunity for growth, discovery, and new beginnings. In this season of With Pride and Grit, we're sharing stories of military spouses who are or have successfully transitioned to civilian life. We'll also hear from experts who can offer valuable insights about transition resources available to support a spouse's journey. Whether you're just starting the transition process or already well on your way, this podcast is for you. We hope to provide you with the knowledge and inspiration to make the most of this new chapter in your life. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get started. Welcome to today's episode. I am very excited to bring you Stephanie Brown from the Military Spouse Chamber of Commerce. Stephanie is going to talk to us a little bit about what the Chamber does and how they can serve military spouses. But we also got into a great conversation about just the evolution of military spouses, the evolution of entrepreneurship for military spouses, and all the things that are being done right now to give military spouses a seat at a variety of tables, including entrepreneurship. So stick around and learn more. So Stephanie, thank you for joining us this morning. We're excited to have you as part of the podcast.
I am excited to be here. We are talking about one of my absolute favorite subjects, military spouses and entrepreneurship.
Right? Two great things. Before we jump into that awesome topic, I would love for you, for folks who don't know who you are, to just give a little bit of background on yourself and kind of how you got connected and working in and creating the Military Spouse Chamber of Commerce, which is our big topic for today.
Yeah, sure. So I am myself a military spouse. My late husband, Tom Brown, served over 30 years in the Navy. And I was a small business owner when we met when I was living in Washington, D.C., and he was stationed at the Pentagon. So I actually own my own business. And I like to joke that, it's true, but I made more money than he did as a young officer. And then we got married and I suddenly became, like so many other military spouses, unemployable or underemployed. So being an entrepreneur and having that kind of unique entrepreneur mindset, we're drawn to solutions when we see a problem. So I started, working on a solution. And in the early days, over a decade ago, that was the Rosie Network, which is still alive and well today. And then later, the Military Spouse Chamber of Commerce. So I managed to recruit some amazing military spouses, Beth Conlon and Jamie Chapman, and convince them that this was a great idea. And we were, off to the races. I think when we officially launched just over 2 years ago, we were featured on the cover of Military Families magazine, which was kind of cool. So that was exciting. And then, we just hit the ground running.
Yeah, that was if anyone hasn't seen that, they should look that up. That was a fantastic photo shoot. It looked like you guys had quite a lot of fun, both together and just kind of launching this effort and this passion of yours into the world. So definitely check that out.
You got to have fun. I mean,
at the end of the day,
right?
So I would love to know a little bit about the history of, how there even became a Military Spouse Chamber of Commerce and how the three of you kind of decided that this was something that would really be needed and helpful in the military spouse space.
Sure. Well, so I was working on a task force with other organizations and stakeholders in the military spouse entrepreneur space. So it was originally myself and Maria McConville, who is also a military spouse. Her husband is General McConville. He's the Chief of Staff of the Army. And she was also an entrepreneur. So we worked on that together. How do we identify barriers and opportunities that military spouses face today that are interested in launching and growing a business, right? And I'm excited to say that out of that task force, we published the Military Spouse Entrepreneur Toolkit, which spouses can find on the Military Spouse Chamber website, Rosie's website, and you can also find it on the DoD's Military OneSource website. So it was Maria who came up with how military spouses can launch small businesses with confidence, clarity, and in compliance. So it's
Mm.
really an incredibly useful toolkit. Back to your question, Beth Conlin happened to be one of the people on the task force, for Amazon. And Maria McConville turned to me and said, "Stephanie, I just met this military spouse. She's amazing. We got to bring her into the task force." And that, of course, was Jamie Chapman. And I, years before, had been part of the Coalition of Veteran-Owned Businesses as a resource partner. And I started working with my good friend over at USAA and others. And we realized that there were certifications if you're a woman-owned business, a minority-owned business, veteran, service-disabled, veteran-owned business, but there was nothing to identify a military spouse-owned business. So how do we create a seat at the table for military spouses if there isn't a way to actually identify and certify that that's what they are? So one day I turned to Beth and Jamie in a call and I said, I really want to roll out this certification that, we worked on years ago. And I think the best way to do that is through a military spouse chamber of commerce. And I remember Beth turned to me and said, "Well, there's already a chamber of commerce, isn't there?" And I said, "No." And she goes, "Well, that's it. I'm all in. I'm in. Let's do it." So the three of us just, put our heads together and laid out what the certification would look like, what our mission was, what our purpose was. And in January, we kicked it off, the certification and the chamber. And I think it was January 2021 on that with Military Families Magazine. So, and here we are today.
And I love that because I feel like it's so true in many situations where, give the military spouse the problem and give three of them the problem and they will absolutely find the solution. So tell me a little bit about, from a, resource perspective, and just how the military spouse, through these certifications and just through kind of the network and awareness that happens, you're able to support military spouses that have an interest in kind of going off and doing their own thing and building their own dream.
Right. Well, we know a lot of military spouses are doing just that today, right? I mean, there's never been a better time to do that. I mean, when I was a young military spouse, we didn't have the things that we have today, how easy it is to set up a website and e-commerce platform, et cetera, et cetera. So really sitting down and kind of identifying, with the help and the voice and input from military spouse business owners, that's critical. To kind of hear from them and put together, resources and support behind those challenges and opportunities, right? But also it's a part of it is awareness. So bringing corporate America to the table to go, hey, we have military spouses in absolutely every industry you can possibly imagine that provide products and services, right? So how do we get buy-in from corporate America, who have made a commitment to having diverse suppliers within their procurement chain? And so obviously USAA was the first to step up because they recognize this firsthand, and they've been a huge proponent in this space. And then, we just started knocking on doors of organizations, corporate America companies that we knew and had relationships with over the years. And I think all of us were kind of surprised at how welcomed we were with our message. And oftentimes these are companies that have already made a commitment to hiring military spouses. So our ask was simply expand that effort to include doing business with military spouses. So, we have now Johnson & Johnson, we have CVS Health, we have Disney, we have AT&T. And I know I'm forgetting people, but if you go on our website, you can see everybody that has stepped up. And we continue to have conversations, with companies, small, medium, and large companies that go, hey, we need this service. So one critical way that we can support military families is by doing business with military spouses.
I love that. And I love that part of the mission, as I hear you talk about it, is, it's not just creating that sort of legitimacy, via the certification, but it's also helping create some awareness for the organizations that are coming through your process, and having that corporate sponsorship to help, you have the funding to be able to expand and to be able to do the programming and to be able to provide, what you can. I would love for someone maybe who is just maybe learning about the chamber for the first time, but I would love for you to kind of paint a picture for a spouse who has an idea or has an organization. At what point do you think that someone going through the process, when should they be doing that if they are a business owner as a military spouse?
Well, since it's free, and I've always said this for over a decade, it's a personal decision, obviously, but don't hide the fact that you're a military spouse, right? We celebrate our veterans. We celebrate our veteran-owned businesses. I mean, you as a spouse have served too. So why not be, loud and proud of the fact that you're a military spouse? And so anyone, no, it doesn't, you don't have to want to do business with companies. I mean, you can have a product or service that is strictly consumer facing, and you just want that, that stamp of, not approval, but legitimacy.
Yeah.
And it's really, the whole process is done online. And then we do an interview with you. So it again, based on industry standards, but the process, I like to think that our technology and the process is very unique in that it no matter what size you are, you can get certified pretty quickly and pretty easily. There isn't a backlog or a long wait, et cetera. We all jump in and help when we do have, quite a few folks in the pipeline. We all get in there and we all make sure that we get them through and certified as quickly as possible. And, I know that other certifying third-party agencies charge to do their certification.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not poo-pooing that, but we recognize military spouses, it's a difficult and rewarding lifestyle. So, we wanted to remove that barrier, and our corporate sponsors they cover the cost
Mm-hmm.
of our military spouses being certified. So why? It's really, identifying yourself, and allowing others to know that, your business is unique. It's something to celebrate. I mean, we know that 70% of American consumers would prefer to patronize a veteran-owned business. And I would argue, although a study hasn't been done, that the same, that's similar for military spouse-owned, because it's really two sides of the same coin, right? So why not celebrate that, and why not make it, get that, simple, hey, I'm part of this community. And that's really what the chamber is building. First and foremost is a community, and bringing those together so that they can cross collaborate and support each other. I mean, imagine what would happen if that's how we all approached it, right? Mm-hmm. One way to help and support military families is to buy from a military family owned, a veteran, a military spouse. They're out there, they're everywhere. They're in your neighborhood, they're in your communities, your state. And, we have that purchasing power.
No, I love that. And being able to, have an easy way to find those organizations, I think is sometimes people might say that's the challenge, right? I don't know where to find them. I don't know how to find them. And so having, various entities like yourself that are kind of rolling that up and making that really easy, I think is really valuable. And I will say, just anecdotally, I did go through with Jamie the process for certification last year, and I can absolutely attest to the fact that it was painless, but it was really good at helping me think through a couple of things in terms of just, have I set up these specific documents? Have I gone through these specific processes? And we had recently moved. And so there were some things I was like, oh yeah, I got to get to that. And so it was a good kind of fire to make sure I had all my ducks in a row before I sent my packet off. And so I kind of appreciated being, encouraged to do that. And then that certification, as you said, was nice and easy. And I love having that. To your point, it's like, yep, I'm military spouse business, and that's on our website, and we're proud to include that on there. So thank you for walking us through that, so folks kind of understand how that would work for them.
Yep.
I would love to. Oh yeah, go ahead.
We also certify military spouse-led nonprofits, which nobody else does. So obviously a nonprofit isn't owned by anybody. So we do military spouse-led nonprofit. And I think that's, important, because a lot of military spouses have a give back, support our community, service oriented, mindset. So we want to recognize the good work that our military spouse nonprofit leaders are doing out there too.
Yeah, I'm glad you added that because you're absolutely right. That is just sort of how who we are. And so I love that you guys found that as a need and went ahead and filled it, which is not surprising. I was going to have you, if you wouldn't mind, take a little bit of a step back in terms of, because I was thinking, you've been in this space for a long time. And so you've seen it from several different angles. You've seen it from the Rosie angle, as you mentioned, over 10 years ago, and then being able to see it from the military spouse angle. I would love to know from your perspective, what do you think is really changing in the entrepreneurial space as it relates to military spouses in that time?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when I first started the Rosie Network, when I first said to myself, hey, getting traditional jobs is rough. I mean, I'm pretty driven and I had a heck of a time and, I became frustrated. I became, I have to admit, I became resentful. I kind of lost this sense of purpose for myself. I mean, I did a lot of volunteer work at my husband's command and all that. I kept busy. I raised kids. But when I finally, it all began like creating Rosie's List, right? So how can people like me, people like you find and locate these businesses? We verify military affiliation. It kind of I started the journey along that route. But what I realized was that there were a lot of spouses that didn't necessarily, they were the experts on their product or service, but they didn't, necessarily have some of that business know-how. So creating the Rosie Network to provide that business know-how, that mentorship, those resources, training, et cetera, sort of, opened my eyes to trying to bridge that gap, trying to give them, they're not alone. There are all kinds of others out there like them that they can come together, be in a cohort, learn from each other, learn from experts, et cetera. And that was, I found to be, incredibly rewarding. But I will tell you, 10 years ago, there were very few people talking about entrepreneurship, independent contractors, self-employment, business ownership when it came to the military spouse employment issue. There was a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of stakeholders working really hard around traditional employment, education opportunities, and that is all fantastic. But the whole, entrepreneurship section was, really being kind of ignored or underserved. And I am an entrepreneur. I mean, that's how I am hardwired that way. My father, Vietnam veteran, was an entrepreneur. So it's really, I see the value in it. Not just the financial value, but the, confidence value, right? That this is mine, I'm doing it. I mean, and how it impacts not just your own sense of self-esteem and, but, your whole family I mean, it's really the qualitative impact is huge. And so I felt in the early days in some of the boards and committees that I sat on, kind of like I was banging my head against the wall. People weren't listening, like, oh, okay, Stephanie. Okay, so a few military spouses want to be entrepreneurs, But then as time went on and I just kept plugging away and pounding the pavement and, saying this is real, this is, this is relevant, more importantly. What has changed is a couple of things. I have never, now people are listening, right? From the DOD to the government to elected officials to on the state and federal level to leaders in the space. More than ever, just over the last 2.5 years, maybe 3 years, self-employment has become huge for military spouses. People are watching, people are investing, people are committed. And I'm excited about that. Before it was sort of, you were an outlier. Good luck, have fun, that's your gig. We're really not taking it that seriously, to a complete turnaround. So it is being, the private sector knows that military spouses are successful business owners and that we tend to hire other military spouses. So we ourselves, to your earlier point, the military spouse unemployment and underemployment issue is in part being solved by military spouses, which I really love. But it's just a very welcoming environment now. So from Fortune 500 companies going, wow, we never thought about military spouse-owned businesses. How can we support them? Right? To the DoD, we have an amazing, in Patty Barron, military family community policy. I mean, she runs that now. She's a military spouse herself. She was on our MilSpouse Entrepreneur Task Force. She gets it, right? And her team gets it. So I think never before has there been such a welcoming environment and so many really true, meaningful individuals and companies that are have stepped up and said, we want to support you. So, I mean, there are a lot of other things that have changed, but really the end of the day, that's one of them. The MilSpouse Chamber is also involved in advocacy. So we've worked with a number of elected officials and other organizations like MOA, National Military Family Association, on getting some meaningful legislation passed that would support military spouse business owners. Last year, we had the Military Spouse Entrepreneur Reimbursement Act make it through the NDAA. So that was exciting, right? Because we all know we lose money every time we PCS. So this act allows military spouse entrepreneurs to be reimbursed for some of those expenses, which I think is incredible. The other piece of legislation, I've had too much coffee and I get excited, that we worked on was the Military Spouse Entrepreneur Act, which would designate military spouse business owners as a disadvantaged category. And if you don't know what that means, you can go on the SBA's website and just, search disadvantaged category. And I think it's important because it allows corporate America, those that track their spend with diverse suppliers, to track military spouse spend, right, and report on it. It also allows the government to open their doors to doing business with military spouse small business owners, which is another thing we're trying to do, is demystify that process, right? It's not as big and scary and overwhelming as you think it is. There's a number of really, I don't want to say easy, but clear paths to getting a piece of that pie, right? Getting in front of or in the procurement chain of the private sector and the government. And we're in the process of demystifying that and providing we're calling it the Military Spouse Procurement Boot Camp. So we're in the stages of building out an online training program that kind of walks you through that process, right? How to do it, where do you need to be registered, things like that. So, yeah, it's very different landscape.
It is, and I think it's so interesting though, because I think if it's sort of like which came first, because I think across the kind of military space, I think there's we are moving towards a little bit greater inclusion and a few more seats at the table in regards to military spouses than we ever have. I see that in the transition space. I feel like that has changed a lot in the last few years, where we recognize it's a family effort. And so everyone needs to sort of be at the table to make that a success. And so I think business ownership is in that category too. And to your point, I think corporations are starting to recognize both as potential employees, the strength of a military spouse, but also as a kind of investment in the military space. There's value in investing in those military spouse efforts that are improving, lives within that space. So I think it is definitely an indication that things are shifting in a lot of places, not just entrepreneurship, but I love that you see the same thing, which is that absolutely in the entrepreneurship space, I think there's just more validity. Doesn't feel like the right word, but there's just more, I guess, that welcoming piece, right? That seat at the table to say, we're going to help you build your business just as much as we're going to help the veteran build their business, because often, in a family, everyone in that family is benefiting from that experience. So it doesn't really matter who we're investing with, we're benefiting that particular family as they,
Yes.
go to the other side of service. So one of the things I think is really interesting that you were talking about too is, for me, what has always separated the military spouse chamber is those kind of two avenues where you're focusing on investing in people who want to be business owners and helping them through in a variety of ways, but then also focusing on not just how do we help you, but then how do we actually make your path easier through that advocacy work. And I think that's such an important part. And that is the part that I think for a lot of folks feels just big and hard. And like, it is such the long game to be able to stay engaged with that and to continue to just every year try to get policies in place and hope that they pass and do all the legwork. But clearly we've seen there are efforts, and this climate sort of shift into welcoming military spouses makes it really the perfect time to have an organization, like the Chamber and others that are helping military spouses kind of improve those policies for their, for their own lives and for their families. So I love that you guys are in that space, and grateful to the Chamber to seeing that need and having the ability to fill that gap.
Yeah, it's a group effort. And I know we often get the question, well, I'm a veteran spouse, my husband or my wife, my partner is no longer serving, are we eligible? And the answer is yes. Or, hey, I spent, 10 years married and moving and we're no longer married, am I eligible? And the answer is yes. As long as you have been, you've been a spouse during a service member's time in service, you qualify because you gave up, right? You gave up your ability to, in most cases, bring in money and create financial stability for yourself. So why should you be penalized? We want to recognize that service. I mean, we're really erring on the side of inclusion and not exclusion. So, if you're married to a veteran, it's not just limited to active duty spouses, I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, and I think that's really important, Stephanie, because I think, again, and I'll speak just in the transition space, I see that a lot where you cross that line and all of a sudden there's a lot of resources that just aren't accessible to you. So I think it's important to point that out, that it doesn't matter, when and where. If you've been a military spouse, then this is a resource that you can take advantage of and be able to help you in developing your business. I would love to know a little bit about kind of where you guys are headed, maybe some things you have coming up, and how folks can find you if they want to find the Military Spouse Chamber, the best way to do that.
Yeah, so our website is milspousechamber.org. You can also go to therosienetwork.org if you're interested in getting into a service to CEO cohort. We have them just for military spouses. They go on all throughout the year. It's really an incredible, you make friends, you get an incredible amount of support. It's an actual, program that at the end you get a college credit for. It's certified. So, it's fantastic, award winning. The Mil Spouse Chamber, if you, follow us, because we often bring in and interview subject matter experts like tax experts, attorneys, if you're in the growth phase, we have resources that support you. We have also discounts on our website from companies that, want to support military spouse-owned businesses. So you can go on there and check that out as well. You should, if you're a military spouse and you have a business, I don't care how small it is, join the chamber. It's free. I mean, we're really, like I said before, trying to create a seat at the table, remove those barriers and increase opportunities. And we can really only do it together, right? We are in the process of opening new chapters, and that was by demand. We kind of started out with the Northwest Florida chapter, that's run by two amazing military spouses. They're both entrepreneurs in their own right. They host monthly get-togethers. We provide a lot of the back end support to help them stand up what we call a local chamber. And we're in the process right now of launching more. You can find the current chapters that we have in areas around the country. And I suspect we'll have, I think, 4 or 5 new chapters within the next 30 to 60 days. We're slowly going. If you would like to open up a chapter, a Military Spouse Chamber chapter, contact us. Let us know. We're not just about, hey, you do all the work and we're gonna, throw our stamp on it. Oh no. This is a collective effort. We're going to work hard to make sure, that you're bringing value, not just to you and your business, but to other military spouses in your neighborhood. So, yeah.
Well, and I think as a business owner, it can be a little lonely, particularly if you're a work-at-home business owner. And so I think having the ability that's that community side you were talking about, right? Being able to build community, but not just any community of people that understand what's hard about it, understand what's, fun about it, and that you can lean on when you get, when you need it as a business owner. So I think that it's just a great expansion effort. I very much look forward to joining into the DC group. Yay. and being part of that when their first events happen. So
we have a big announcement. So before I forget, we have a big announcement that we're going to be rolling out on Military Spouse Appreciation Day. So I'm excited about that. And we're also working, I believe we've just secured the actual date of the first Military Spouse Entrepreneur Summit. So more on that will be forthcoming very shortly. It's going to be in Washington, D.C., and it'll be this fall. So before I make the date official and get in trouble, right. Let me just tell you, and again, that's by demand. We over the years, we've had military spouses come to us and say, hey, our lives are unique compared to veterans. We love our veterans. We couldn't be military spouses without them, right? But our challenges are unique. And so we decided that it was time to create a really best-in-class event for spouse entrepreneurs to come together, support each other, network, which is critical, and collaborate and learn and really bring value to the table for military spouse entrepreneurs, small business owners. So I'm excited. It'll be an annual event, but I'm excited to kick that off. It'll be this fall in Washington, D.C. We have an incredible speaker who will be joining us, and it's not just the Mil Spouse Chamber. Again, I'm a big proponent of collaboration. So there will be other organizations involved, but all of us at the end of the day are committed to helping military spouses be successful in whatever they define as success, right? It can be that, small business that you do on the weekend just so, you have a little bit of extra spending money or you can pay a bill. We are going to fight and stand beside you just as hard as we're going to do along somebody whose, goals are, much, larger. Your definition of success is what matters, not ours, not anybody else's. So.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's important to meet people where they are because our seasons change. Right. This particular season of life, I might be in the smaller scale. And then as things go on and I get closer to maybe a transition out of service for our family, I might be interested in something a little bigger, and being able to grow with, I think the chamber is just a great thing for spouses to remember that it's there and it's a resource and it's designed to just make their efforts easier. Is there anything else, Stephanie, in kind of closing? I have a couple little quick questions I want to ask you at the end, but is there anything else about the chamber that we haven't talked about that you wanted to make sure that we made everyone aware of today?
I just, it's such a huge landscape. I know that it can be hard to kind of, weed your way through everything that's out there. We're trying as hard as we can to do that with you and for you so you can, come to one trusted site. And again, we collaborate with other organizations. We are not trying to duplicate what other people are doing. We're all about collaboration. If you want to support what the military spouses, entrepreneurs, independent contractors, small business owners, come and join our efforts. We have a huge advisory committee from all walks of life. You don't have to be a military spouse to support the chamber, support our efforts, support your efforts. I mean, we really, with the boot camp that we're rolling out, with our chapters that we're rolling out, with the summit coming up, and all of our legislative efforts, I would love it if people, even if you're not a small business owner, but you're a spouse and you want to go on and just, give us your contact. We'll keep you up to date, because as one of the things, as we start to roll out some of these legislative efforts, and not just at the federal level, but at your state level, we're working right now with states to get military spouses recognized in their set aside. Mm-hmm. I am hoping that happens. And I think the first state that steps up to do it, it's going to be a big win for them. But we need your voice. We need, you to, write a letter to your congressman, your congresswoman, and say, hey, enough. We need to support our spouses if we really want to make an impact on the quality of life, retention, mission readiness, the financial stability of our families. Spouses play a major role in that. And we need to expand the conversation beyond just traditional employment, just education. I mean, military spouses already hold higher levels of education than our civilian counterparts. We were built to be business owners and entrepreneurs. I'm telling you, and I continue every day to be blown away and humbled by how smart, capable spouses are that are doing incredible things. So join the movement is what I would say.
Absolutely. I would love to ask you just a couple quick kind of rapid fire questions. So these are like 1 word, 1 sentence answers. Are you game for that?
I'm game. Absolutely.
So I would love the Stephanie Brown perspective on what is it that you love most about working with military families?
Community.
For sure.
And I know you said short answer. The military, and I will keep it short. The military community is one of the most unique communities in the world. It really is.
Yeah.
So community, absolutely.
So another one is, you mentioned you didn't mention the transition, but by talking about your background a little bit, we can kind of extrapolate a transition in there at some point, right? So I'm curious, what's the one thing you wish spouses knew about transition from military life into civilian life?
Don't wait till the end. We're 6 months before the end.
to do the transition.
To do anything, right? To do anything. Don't wait till the end. There's never a perfect time to start a business. There's never a perfect time to start preparing for transition. It's going to come, right? There's nobody that has, served their entire life and in the military or any, transition is going to happen. Don't wait until the end. And that message is true for the service member too. I mean, Tom worked until the very last day. He did not take any time off. And I wish I could go back and just, shake him and go, what are you doing? Don't wait for the perfect time. Well, when the kids are, off in school, or don't do it now, just take that leap, one step forward, start planning that, start planning your transition. And that was not a short answer or a 1-word answer, but
it was a good one.
Bottom line is, don't wait. Make the plan.
I love it.
It'll change, but make the plan.
Yes. Plan for it to change.
Exactly. And we know they do, right?
All the time. I have one more for you, which is, what do you wish civilians really understood about military spouses?
We're mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, parents, that we're just like them, but that we welcome us, right? I mean, we have to make new friends in a new community every 2 to 4 years. Come up to us, say hello. I love it when people say, hey, thank you for your service. Now, I didn't wear a uniform, but goodness knows I washed and ironed enough of them. Um, so just, we're like you. We're, we're more like you than we're not. And again, I mean, because my focus is on entrepreneurship, before you hit that big box store or online or walking, in a brick and mortar, stop and think, I got to buy a birthday gift for my friend. Why not, find a local military spouse owned business or a military spouse owned business that can provide that for me. Make that commitment.
Yep. No, for sure. I love it. There's so much talent in this community that I think doesn't always get seen. And that's kind of what you're speaking to, is just know that there's a lot of talent there that you may not realize exists, and seek it out. It takes a little bit of intentionality, but it's worth it.
It is. It really is. And again, it is, we as taxpayers pay a lot of money because, around military spouse unemployment, right? So why not, if we're trying to fix one piece of that pie, why not try to, ramp up and fix the other piece? And that is self-employment, right? It's just as important. Military spouses are drawn to self-employment at higher rates than any other category in our country. So it's going to take all of us, right?
Yeah.
So military spouses are here to fix the problem, and just join the movement.
I love it. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for hanging out with us today and giving us a little bit of insight on kind of what the Military Spouse Chamber is up to, how folks can get involved, and the mission, because I think it is a great resource for transition, no matter where you are. If this is where you want to go and this is part of your dream to build a business, then find organizations like the Chamber that are going to help make it easier for you. So thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
That's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the With Pride and Grit podcast. We're so grateful to our guests for sharing their stories and expertise with us, and we're grateful to you, our listeners, for tuning in. Please remember to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. And we always appreciate you sharing us with a friend or leaving a kind review. If you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can find us on social media under @PrideandGrit or on our website, prideandgrit.com. Until next time, please remember you're not alone on this journey, and it is our privilege to walk alongside you.